Hi, my name is Theresa Flores. I'm a survivor of domestic minor sex trafficking. I travel around the United States and share my story of how me, just a normal teenager from the suburbs, well-to-do, a mom and a dad, was entangled into this horror growing up and nobody knew. I talk a lot at schools and churches and anybody that wants to hear it because so many people don't have any idea that this is a problem in our country to American kids. I started doing this a couple years ago. I never knew what it was called, what happened to me. And I searched for those words and could not find it. And I went to a conference one day on human trafficking, and I thought this might be something important for me to go to, being a social worker. And within a few minutes of being there, I realized that I finally found my word. I finally figured out what it was called, what happened to me all those years earlier. But then I also realized if I didn't know this, and here I am, a professional, I have a master's degree in social work, and I lived that, and if I didn't know this, how many other people don't know this too? So it was at that moment that the Lord really spoke to me and said, this is your calling. This is what I've prepared you for all this time. You see, I had gone through this unknowing as a teenager, was miraculously rescued from that, and then went on to college and had a family. And I look back and I see how amazing this was that I became a social worker and I healed and I had the Lord in my life. And looking back, I can see how that all helped prime me for this calling that He had for me. And I realized at that time there was very few laws against human trafficking in the United States, and that was unacceptable. I have teenage daughters, and I didn't want this to happen to them. So I decided I was going to start sharing my story. A lot of people in the audience that day asked, how many times has this happened to people? How many survivors are there? How come we haven't heard of this? And they didn't have an answer. The people on the stage didn't know what to say. They said, because we don't have a lot of survivors that talk out about it. So I decided that that's what God wanted me to do. So that was about 4 years ago. I wrote my book on what happened because I wanted teenagers and teachers and parents to read this to understand how easily it can happen and go on right around us and people not know. And so during this time of sharing my story, I found myself being asked to go to Detroit to a talk. And you see, I was trafficked in Detroit, in a suburb, and I really didn't want to go. I didn't want to go back there because my traffickers still live there today. They were never prosecuted, as so many aren't. And I thought, this should be enough. This is what God wanted me to do. Sharing my story should be enough. And because it's still really difficult to do. You see, I grew up in a normal family. My mom and dad were good people. They didn't beat me or do drugs. They didn't abuse me in any way. I didn't do drugs. I wasn't promiscuous. I had three younger brothers. And I went to church every Sunday. And I was a good kid. But I wasn't immune from this. You see, my grandpa was even a very prominent lawyer and judge in Indiana. And nothing, I realized, can immune a kid from this happening except for awareness on this issue. And so we moved around a lot because my dad was an executive for a big company. And every 2 years he would get a promotion and get a raise, and we would move to a different place. And it was fun for a while, but as I got to high school, it got more difficult. It got pretty tough making friends and fitting into a group. And eventually, I found some friends in this new place, and it was called Birmingham, Michigan. It was a suburb of Detroit, very nice. And I went there, making new friends, trying to fit in, and it was hard because I didn't have grandparents or aunts and uncles that lived in the same town that could say, Teresa, you can come to us and talk to us if something's happening. I didn't have kindergarten teachers or people that knew me from when I was young to say, she's acting kind of different. Have you noticed? I didn't have any of that. I didn't have that support network. And here I am, 15. I'm in a new school, and this one guy is starting to pay a lot of attention to me. And I thought, oh, this is great. But my parents were really strict, and they said you're not allowed to date until you're 16. Can't even talk to him on the phone, nothing like that. So my friends noticed him talking to me a lot and being nice, but they said, if you want to be friends with us, you won't talk to him. He doesn't fit into our group. And he was different. He was not like any of the other guys. He wore very nice clothes to school, name brand like Ralph Lauren. He wore gold chains. He smelled different. Now most of the guys that I went to school with wore jeans and flannel shirts, and they went hunting. Just your normal kind of guy. But he wasn't like that. And I wasn't allowed to like him. I wasn't allowed to go out with him. So one day I was at track practice after school, and I forgot something in my locker, and I went back, and he's standing there right by my locker. And I thought, oh, this is pretty nice. And he says, hey, do you want to ride home from school? Very simple. And here I am, 15. I have a crush on him, and I'm not allowed to like him. So I jumped at the chance. Really, to be honest, I was so excited. And I thought, well, this isn't a date. He's just taking me home from school, so it should be okay. So we go out to his car, and he had a brand new Trans Am. And I just thought this was fantastic. And when we pulled out of the driveway, we pulled out the wrong way. He pulled out to the right, and I lived to the left. And I'm like, wait, I live this way. And he said, I know, but I just need to go home and grab something. And, to be honest, red flags went off in my head because my parents had done a really good job talking to me and training me. But then I thought, you're being silly. You go to school with him. You know him. You go to church with him. It's fine. So I ignored all those red flags, and I went to his house. And he said, hey, do you want to come in? I just need to grab something. And more red flags went off, and I said, no, I'm not allowed to. I need to get home to my mom. But he turned and he said 3 words. He said, I like you. That's all it took. 3 words. And I ignored all those red flags that day, and I went in because I thought everything would be okay. But it wasn't, because they were all right. He did something very typical, even 30 years later, that's done. He offered me a pop, a soda, and unfortunately it was laced with something, and he raped me. He took me home later, and I was devastated. I was so distraught because I was a virgin. And in my family, we held that very high, almost valued that as much as family. It was something that I had planned to keep until I got married. I was really excited and proud of that. And all of a sudden it was gone. So I didn't say anything to my mom because I was embarrassed. I felt guilty that I had gone with him and she had told me not to. I felt shameful that I'm dirty now and different. And I thought, I'm just going to take care of this on my own. It'll be okay. But it got worse because several days later, he came up to me after school and he had an envelope. And in that envelope were pictures. His 2 cousins that were older had been there taking pictures of the whole thing. And he said, we have a plan. And that plan is that you're going to earn these back or else. We're going to show them to your dad. We're going to show them to his boss. We're going to put them around school. And he said, you're going to work for us to work these off. Now, I had no idea what that meant, like work them off. I thought it might mean doing their homework, doing their schoolwork, they're working on their car, cleaning it, whatever. But what they would do is they would call my room in the middle of the night and demand I appear immediately. I was taken to really nice, beautiful homes and taken downstairs to these little rooms where I would have to service man after man after man. And I would be taken home again about 3 or 4 in the morning, sneak back inside my house, go to sleep for a couple hours, and go to school the next day and do it all over again. And nobody had any clue this was happening to me. Nobody had any idea that something like this was happening to a normal kid like me. So when I went back to Detroit to do my talk, I was really nervous. I didn't want to go back to Detroit, but I felt that the Lord really wanted me to be there, that it was important for me to do this, to educate the people of Michigan about trafficking. And I did my talk. I was very excited, and I was driving home. They offered to let me come and, just stay overnight in a hotel there, and I said, no, thanks, I didn't want to get home. And it was late, and I was driving home, and I got lost. And I started seeing green signs for the name of the town that I was taken to a lot. And I started to cry. Um, I was just I was just totally distraught. I'm like, God, why are you doing this to me? I obeyed you. I'm telling my story. I'm educating people. It's hard. And I went to Detroit. And why is this happening? And I was remembering that day about a young girl that had been starting to communicate with me on email. And she had been sold by her parents when she was 2. And she was having a hard time. She couldn't find a counselor. She didn't know the Lord. And I really didn't think she was going to make it through the weekend. So I was thinking of Sophie, and I was thinking of that time in Detroit. And I cried out to God, and I said, what is it that you want me to do? What is it? What more am I supposed to do? How can I help those Sophies from ever going through what I went through before it happens? And I remembered my worst night. I remembered being kidnapped, literally, and taken not to a fancy, nice home, but to an inner city Detroit motel. I had been drugged and beaten. And when we pulled up to this motel, it was like an L-shaped motel, broken down cars, doors that opened up, on the outside, just nasty. And there was a diner, like a little 24-hour diner at the end. When these guys dragged me out of the car by my hair, it was to an open motel room door where over 24 men waited for me. Here I was, the only female, 16, in this tiny little room with a sea of men. And that night, I was auctioned off to the highest bidder over and over and over again until I literally passed out. When I woke up, I remember feeling very dizzy and very sick, and I remember trying to run to the bathroom because I needed to throw up, and I fell because my legs couldn't carry me. I was so sore. I crawled on my hands and knees to the bathroom and threw up, and I remember just laying my head on that cold toilet seat thinking, what am I going to do? I've been left here for dead. I have no way of getting home. I have no money, no ID, no idea where I'm at, and no clothes, no shoes, and I have no idea what I'm going to do. They always took me home. I thought, well, either they think I'm dead and they're going to come back for the body, or they think I can't go anywhere and I'm going to be stuck into this for the rest of my life and I'll never see my family again. And I didn't like either of those two options, so I just started walking. I remembered that feeling of total darkness and despair with no hope whatsoever. And I remember that these girls are taken to motels all around the country, from state to state, to servicemen. They're beaten, they're treated horribly, they don't keep any of the money, and they're at his beck and call all the time. And I thought, I really could have used somebody to talk to that night. I needed a friend, just somebody who could understand what I was going through. And I didn't have that. And I thought, this is what we need to do, is we need to get to these girls in that moment, in those motels. Because those motels are the only time they're alone. After he leaves, they're alone. They can go to the bathroom, they can wash up, but that's the only time they're by themselves. And then I remembered we have this 1-800, it's a toll-free national human trafficking hotline. And how wonderful is that? And I thought, that I could have used that. I could have called somebody for help. And I thought, well, I'll put this 1-800 number in the hotels so these girls can see them. And then I thought, well, what am I going to put it on? what item. There's nothing in these hotels. They're nasty, skanky hotels. And I thought, well, they all have a bar of soap because by Board of Health they have to. So I decided to put this toll-free hotline number with some questions on it, um, on bars of soap. And I thought, well, how am I going to get it to them? You know? And I remembered that this is an economic issue. Human trafficking is about economics. And I thought, I'm going to give them to these motel owners for free. That might work. And asked them to put it out, especially during high demand times like Super Bowls and any kind of thing that's coming to the city where there's a lot of people coming from that are away from their homes, away from their families, and temptation is high. And so that's how soap was created. So as I am driving out of Detroit that night after my talk, and I'm thinking through all this, I'm thinking, wow, I can do this. And I thought, well, God, this is a great idea. I'm finding my way now. I'm getting closer to Ohio. I can see home now. I really don't want to do this. I'm really tired. I'm doing a lot of work. I don't need another thing to do. And so I started questioning him, and I said, if I'm supposed to do this, if I'm supposed to start this whole soap outreach thing, then what do I call it? Give me the name, give me a sign. And I hear in my car, soap. Call it soap. I'm like, well, that's cute. That's nice. But if this is really from you, God, what does SOAP stand for? Because every, cute thing has to have a little acronym. If it's really from you and you really want me to do this, what does that stand for? And in my head popped like this: save our adolescents from prostitution. And I thought, that's it. How simple. It's a simple little bar of soap with a phone number. And it is all about saving people from prostitution. So it was created, and it was shortly after that I was in New Jersey speaking and hadn't done anything with it, and I met Michael Bartel with Free International. And he was saying that they did the Super Bowl outreach last year, having a hard time getting in. And I said, well, I have a product. Maybe we could get my soap out and we can get you in to do the rescue if we work together. And he said, yes, do it. And so we got really excited, and he pulled together all these wonderful volunteers from Convoy of Hope and all around. And we came together for the Super Bowl in Dallas. We weathered 2 snowstorms and an ice storm, and we came together, people from all over the country, with one goal: to rescue people from prostitution. And it was the most moving experience of my life, trying to figure out how to do this. How do we package this? How do we reach the motels? How do we convince them? And it was amazing. Within 2 days, we got out 10,000 bars of soap, 2 hotels all around Dallas. And like I said, it was just the most amazing, outreach ever. And we decided at that time we were going to keep doing this. It wasn't just going to be a one-time thing. And we were going to do this to other events, other places that guys come in to buy girls. And I get to talk to a lot of survivors, and a lot of them tell me about the different states and the different events that they have been taken to by their pimp. And so I started writing all those down. And I realized that every one of these places in a different city, a different state, and I needed to partner with churches, with organizations to make this happen. I can't do it by myself. God created soap, it's not me. So partnership into this is so important. And so Michael has helped me so much with Free International, partnering with different churches, raising money, getting donations, because God is really raising an army right now. He doesn't like this happening to his sheep. And he is raising an army and bringing people in to be shepherds. And it's so important that we do this. So last year I also did it for a PGA tournament here in Ohio, and actually 2 of them, and then the Kentucky Derby. In 2012, I'll be partnering again with Free International and Convoy of Help, and we'll be doing the Super Bowl in Indianapolis again. I'm going to be doing the soap project in Detroit in January for the Detroit Auto Show. Also, the Arnold Classic in Columbus, which is a bodybuilding competition that really drives up the demand huge. We're going to be doing it at Sturgis, North Dakota for Bike Week, the Democrat and Republican National Conventions, various golf tournaments, and anywhere that people have an idea that they know girls are being taken to and sold. That's where I want to be. We go and we train volunteers. We sit there and label thousands of bars of soap with little labels on the bars. We package them up, and then we team up and we go out. And people go into the motels and talk to them and say, "Do you know how big of a problem this is? Let me tell you some of the signs. If you see a girl like this is what you need to look for, and this is what you need to do." And I've been surprised because so many people, the owners of these motels and the staff, have said, "Oh my gosh, we've seen this. We just didn't know that they weren't doing it by choice, or we didn't know who to call." And then we're like, "Well, we can help you with that. Let us give you the answers." And it's been wonderful for them, and it just works, and it works because it's God's idea, you know. So. It's been amazing. The one thing I like too is that there's lots of prayer around this. We have a couple people that go into the motel to talk to them and offer them the soap. And we have a couple people that stay back in the car praying for them, for their protection, for the wisdom of the owners to say yes and take this. And we look for the signs of girls in these places. So if you'd like to have any more information about how you can volunteer, about how you can help donate, or just wanting more information about the SOAP project, please get a hold of Free International and ask them everything. They'll answer whatever questions you have on how to help be a shepherd in the SOAP outreach. Thank you.